And just to tell you, I mean, Jimmy John's is fantastic, so I completely understand. But it does humanize somebody who the jury doesn't get a chance to see and hear from firsthand. That's why it's so miraculous when we have surviving victims, but here we don't have that. So I'm curious, the jury chose obviously not to recommend the death penalty, but that doesn't mean that they didn't take this into account.
That's correct. And it's a Florida jury. I always find Florida juries very interesting. They did do the Casey Anthony case.
Right.
So again, they were death penalty qualified. So I was very surprised. I thought that they were going to come back with the death penalty, but they did not. And this is very typical of what happens at a sentencing hearing, because, like you said, the victims are not alive. Then the family, the other victims that have been impacted by the deaths, get to go up and do their version of their impact statement.
Even though this jury was selected for being eligible in the sense that they didn't make a decision one way or another on the death penalty, they're objective, it is really tough to get a jury to say yes to executing a man that they've seen day in and day out, despite what they already convicted him for. Am I understanding that right?
It is difficult, depending on the state, depending on where you are in the country, for sure. But this one was a long one, and I think that there was a lot of family members and that testified on, not on his behalf, but that made him more human, I suppose. His brother testified, grandmother, family members. So I was still surprised. I thought usually when it is a death qualified jury, they do vote for a death penalty, especially in the southern states. But I was pleasantly surprised. I think that death is never good, and I think that spending time in prison is probably worse.
Well, it's difficult for anybody to know what the right punishment is and what the right decision is, but we all respect the jury's verdict no matter what decision they come to. So let's just go back right now to the prosecution's opening statement during this penalty phase, where they said to this jury the only appropriate punishment is in fact death. Let's listen. There's no question this crime was cold, it was calculated. Trying to make it look like a murder-suicide just shows the heinous nature of it. But what are those conversations those jurors have? Do they go with a sheet and say, well, these are the aggravating circumstances, these are the mitigating circumstances, and they weigh them? Or really, do they have more of a human conversation, say, can we really put another person to death? I mean, what do you think those conversations are like in that room?
I think it's a little bit of both. We're dealing with normal human beings with their own lives, and I think that to start off, when they start deliberating, they probably do use this sheet. It's a difficult, I'm sure it's very weird, no? Where they have to sit here and now come together and start the real work of going through the evidence. So I'm sure that they do go through that list. I was just looking through the factors. There's about 14 of them. And then after they probably go through those factors, yeah, of course the human nature comes out. Again, these are just factors. This is just a mechanism to help the jury give more weight to the evidence on how he should be punished. And I think that after you get the factors, yes, your life, what you've been through, your observations about life and your own personal feelings go into what you're going to vote or what you're going to weigh heavy.
Right, and the jury's shielded from situations. Well, I heard about this case where this guy did X, Y, and Z. The jury recommended death in that case, so we'll do the same thing. They're shielded away from that. They have to just take those facts, and then at the end of the day, it's almost impossible to predict which way a jury's going to go, because you've seen even worse crimes where, again, it's life in prison, or it's hard to judge but it's always difficult to predict.
Absolutely. I think it's because human nature, and we're very hard to predict of what we're going to do or say, and once you're in there and who's going to take the lead and who's going to be a bully or who's going to get emotional, there's so many things that happen in a jury room. So yes, they're very fickle, and you can never tell what they're thinking and what they're going to rule or how they're going to rule.
Well, I'll tell you what, when we come back, I want to play what the defense had to say, because there was an interesting part to that, and we're also going to play you some of the testimony from Jason Amato. A lot more to cover. Stay tuned. All right, Jessica, this is my issue. This is what I have a problem with. Their whole case, their whole thing was that he didn't do it. He didn't do it. He wasn't there. He didn't hurt them. He didn't kill them. How can they say that and then go into this penalty phase and call it a crime of passion, a crime of rage? Are they not conceding the fact that he did this? Because here's the problem. it really doesn't end here. Don't they have appeals? Don't they have to be consistent in the record? Don't they have to be consistent with the jury? I'm confused. Help me.
So that absolutely, that makes total common sense, but we have to look at what they're there for that day. It is a sentencing hearing. They have to go through mitigating factors and aggravating factors, and the state went and they've shown their aggravating factor. So they have to. Well, usually the defense goes first, so they're putting their case forward, and they know that one of the factors was this crime heinous. So they are defending the sentencing portion. He's already been found guilty. They can't sit there anymore and say, okay, by the way, we didn't do this. Okay, you found him guilty. Now let's look at how guilty is he.
All right. Well, all right. I'll
But
give
it
you
is
that.
pretty brilliant.
All right,
I'm going to use their evidence against my client.
Good try. All right. I'm looking at a grand scope thing. I want to go back to Jason Amato, really important witness. He lost his entire family through this whole event. Watch what he had to say. Do you think one of the decisions that the jury made in obviously recommending life in prison, not the death penalty, is that if they chose to execute Grant Amato, they'd be taking another family member away from Jason?
Who knows what they were thinking about, but I think that they were just in not voting for the death penalty. So I'm thinking that they probably took all the evidence that they were provided, just like juries do, and really just used their sense of mercy and their sense of observations in life, and really listened to what each and every witness said. And I think that it was a just decision for sure.
The reason I say that is just because he had mentioned that he still loves his brother. He loves both of his brothers, and a part of me felt that that jury, watching what this man had to go through, and the fact, are we going to take away his surviving family member, even though what he did was horrific and heinous? Can we do that? And that's a question, and we won't know unless we speak to the jury. We're going to take a break. When we come back, a lot more to cover, and hopefully we're going to preview a brand new case that we plan to cover here on the network as well. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.